sexuality is diverse and there are so many different ways to be turned on. And if we could be more inclusive towards each other, curious about each other, and accepting of the reality that we are all unique, this world would be a kinder place. Hello, you gorgeous and sexy creature. Welcome to Practice Intimacy. This is the place to be to learn all about love, sex, and how to have the best relationships you possibly can. My name is Jami Lynn. I'm a marriage and family therapist in the Austin area, and today we are talking about fetishes. Yes, I love talking about things that are often a little bit taboo in our culture, and I think fetishes is still one of them, unfortunately. And so we're going to talk about the origin of that word. We're going to talk about people who have fetishes, and we're going to talk about people who do not have fetishes, but how you can use the power of embodying fetish to have a more turned on sex life. Okay, so let's get started. First, this word, it originates from, to begin with, the Latin root of this meant to make something, and particularly to make something artistic. And then move down through the years to about the 17th century, you can find words that are similar to fetish both in French and Portuguese. And for the French word, it meant a charm. And often what they were talking about was, this would have been the time whenever French people had colonized West Africa, and they would carry around these talismans, these charms basically, and French people would call those, ooh man, I wish I could remember the name, but it's a French word that sounds like fetish. I cannot say it. I wouldn't be able to say it even if I tried because I'm not good at French. And then in Portuguese, there was another very similar word that fetish has etymological roots in, which meant sorcery, talisman, an object with specific powers to it. And so basically, the root word, the etymology of the word fetish means some kind of artistic, man-made object that has special supernatural properties to it. Some kind of talisman, or like a sorcerer's stone, almost, you can think of it as. And today, the way that we use the word fetish is to describe an object that brings up sexual arousal for a person. And so you can think of things like some kind of clothing being a fetish. I'm wearing my lace today because lace could be a fetish for a person. Satin could be fetishized. Shoes can be. We have a little bit of a misnomer whenever we say things like foot fetish, because that is not actually a fetish. That is partialism. I am partial to a particular body part, just like a person might be partial towards the butt, towards breasts, towards shoulders, towards hair. That's not actually a fetish though, because that's part of a human body. It is not a object. It is not a non-living thing that turns you on. That's what fetish means. It's some kind of non-living, inanimate object that becomes sexualized for whatever reason. Most of the time because of some early experience in our history where the two got linked, and then that carries on through the rest of our life and continues to bring us peak arousal. And so that's what a fetish is. Originally, it was some kind of object with magical properties. Today, the way we speak about a fetish is an inanimate object that brings on sexual arousal because there's some kind of internal pairing between that object and sexuality, eroticism. And then sometimes we misnomer it and we actually mean partialism, but we say foot fetish. So that's all the context for you and what a fetish is. But let's get into how this actually affects people. To begin with, I want to start with the people who actually have fetishes. Some folks absolutely love it. Their fetish is a wonderful turn on. They know it's a turn on, it works for them, and it is a positive experience in their life, and they know it's something that they can return to be sexually alive. For other people, there might be a lot of shame, either because they think that their fetish is weird, or because other people have told them their fetish is weird, or because they need that in order to experience turn on, and a partner might get angry about it. I'm thinking of an example where one person had a satin fetish and their partner left them because they were like, I refuse to wear satin underwear or climb into satin sheets ever again. I just don't want my sexuality to only be attached to satin. I cannot do it. And so it can actually be really painful for people to have a fetish sometimes. There's a lot of stigma and judgment. There's a lot of shame around what's wrong with me that I can't just get turned on by other things. And my message to you is that there is nothing wrong with you. It is so common for us to experience turn on because an object is exciting to you. And you do not have to dig into your history to try and figure out why, but instead coming into greater acceptance that this is just a natural part of being alive. There are plenty of people whose brains have made an association between object and sexual excitement, and there is nothing wrong with that. If it is causing you pain, either because of shame or because of disagreements with partners, conflicts with partners around the fetish, my suggestion would be to seek help. There are certainly people out in the world who would be able to help you navigate the difficulty of that, and maybe even come into a space where you can use the fetish, the peak sexual experience, and start training your brain to be turned on by other things as well. It may never be as exciting as that peak experience, but you can definitely come into a place where you train your nervous system, train your eroticism to be turned on by other things too. It just requires practice, honestly. It requires an intentional shift in the way that you engage in sex. But it is helpful to have somebody lead you through that process, so I definitely suggest seeking a professional to help you there. The other people that I want to speak to would be anyone who's partnered with a person who has a fetish. Just coming into a space where you can look at that experience through the lens of course, brains sometimes make associations between peak sexual experiences and an object. Of course that happens. It has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with my desirability. There is nothing wrong with my partner for fetishizing shoes, lace, satin, whatever the thing is. And instead just coming into a space of like acceptance, genuine acceptance around it. There's nothing wrong with having a fetish. It is okay. And then on the other side, for people who do not have fetishes, which the majority of people actually do not, and that's why there is more taboo around this, is because it's a minority of people who really experience sexual turn on with inanimate objects. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Cool. Your brain did something different. That's amazing. Your sexuality is different from other people's. It's unique. Awesome. And yes, it is in the minority. And so historically, people have been a little bit judgmental towards that because they don't understand it. To me, it feels very similar to the way in which heteronormative culture ostracizes queer people. Oh, you have a different sexual experience of the world than me? That's wrong. You're bad. No, that is not true. It's just that sexuality is diverse and there are so many different ways to be turned on. And if we could be more inclusive towards each other, curious about each other, and accepting of the reality that we are all unique, this world would be a kinder place. So allow yourself to be in more openness and acceptance of your fetish. If you meet someone with a fetish, same thing. Allow yourself to be open, curious, accepting, because it is a natural and normal part of life. There are many people in this world who experience being turned on by things. Okay, so for those of us who do not have that lovely experience of knowing lace will get me there in no time at all, what you can do is actually be a little bit curious about how you could bring fetish into your life. So imagine allowing yourself to play a little bit more with things that are not alive. Fetishes can be all kinds of things. Fetishes could be latex, they could be leather, they could be gloves, they could be shoes, they could be skirts of a certain length, whatever the thing is. And so what if you, person who does not have a fetish, allowed yourself to step into the sense of fetishizing these things to turn yourself on more? I do not have a lace fetish, but what if I allowed myself to get really excited by wearing lace or touching lace? What if I let myself experience it a little bit differently? And this might not make sense to some people, which is totally fine. It's kind of strange to imagine yourself stepping into a way of being that is not your norm, that is not just innately part of you. But what I'm suggesting is let yourself fall into, turn on by an object and just see what it's like for you. You could do this with a pole if you are someone who's learning pole dancing. You could do this with a kink toy if you are someone who enjoys kink. You could do this with your clothing if you are someone who likes to get a little dressed up or wear specific kinds of sexy things. And just imagine adopting a little bit more of a position of, not only does this feel good to me, but I can actually make it hotter by putting even more sexual intention into the relationship between me and object. And just see what it does for you. How is your sex life if you practice this? What would it be like for you to get turned on in this way? It's just a new way to let yourself play, really. How can you be a little bit more playful with your turn on? Just for the fun of it, just for the exploration. And then also, I hope that this would allow more people to come into relationship with fetish so that there is more acceptance for the folks who have a genuine sexual pairing where their eroticism, their turn on is connected to some kind of object. Ideally, if we all would step into the part of ourselves that can do that, because we all can, then hopefully there would be more space for the people who experience that as a peak turn on. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it gave you a different perspective on fetish if you've never really thought about it as something that you can play with in your own sexual life. And I hope that's also created more space and acceptance inside of you for the fact that this is a normal human reaction to being alive and erotic. Okay, I hope you have a beautiful day. Remember to like this video, leave me comments. I love reading what you say. Subscribe to my channel if you want more videos on sex, love, relationships, neuroscience, tantra, all the things that we cover on this channel. And I will see you next time. Bye for now.